If you need to add more volume for an object, there are two easy ways to add that volume. First, you can extrude along normals in edit mode. This can be done in three ways. With the object selected, open the Mesh menu. Then choose Extrude, extrude faces along normals. Moving your mouse will allow you to extrude the faces. You can then refine the extrusion using the popover menu. Second, with the object selected, choose the Extrude along normals from the submenu of the Extrude tool in the toolbar. Then use the gizmo to extrude the faces of the object. You can then refine the extrusion using the popover menu. Third, with the object selected, use Alt-E to open the Extrude menu. Then choose Extrude Faces along normals. Moving your mouse will allow you to extrude the faces. You can then refine the extrusion using the popover menu. Second, you can use the Solidify modifier. This can be done in two ways. In object mode, with the object selected, open the object menu. Go to Modifiers, Add Modifier, Generate, Solidify. You can then open the Modifier tab and make adjustments. In object mode or edit mode, select the object, open the Modifiers tab, add a modifier, and under the Generate submenu, choose Solidify. You can then make any necessary modifications. The Poke Faces tool splits selected faces into a triangle fan. This creates a new center vertex with triangles between the original face edges and the new center vertex. This can be done in two ways. First, in edit mode with the mesh selected, under the face menu, choose Poke Faces. You can then make some adjustments using the popover menu. Second, in edit mode with the mesh selected, you can right-click and select Poke Faces. You can then make some adjustments using the popover menu. The Triangulate tool converts selected faces into triangular faces. This will help to optimize your geometry if you choose to use the Decimate modifier. This can be done in three ways. First, in edit mode with the mesh selected, under the face menu, choose Triangulate Faces. You can then make some adjustments using the popover menu. Second, in edit mode with the mesh selected, you can right-click and select Triangulate Faces. You can then make some adjustments using the popover menu. Third, in edit mode with the mesh selected, you can use the hotkey Ctrl-T to triangulate the faces. You can then make some adjustments using the popover menu. After you add a loop cut to your object, you can use the even and flipped options. This is especially important if you have angled edges on the mesh. After you add your loop cut, you can use the E key to align the edge loop with an adjacent edge loop. Alternatively, you can use the F key to flip to an alternative edge loop. Go to your preferences and look up Bool tool and activate it. This tool allows you to quickly perform Boolean operations on various objects. Shift-Control-B is the hotkey to access the Boolean tool menu. The Boolean tool difference will mean that you will cut out the overlapping shape and delete the sphere. The last object selected is what will be the object that will have the cutout applied to it. If you instead choose the brush Boolean difference, you can select the sphere and move it in real time. The auto Boolean union will join the overlapping shapes. If you instead choose the brush Boolean union, you can select the sphere and move it in real time. The auto Boolean intersect will join the overlapping shapes and delete everything outside the overlapping shapes. If you instead choose the brush Boolean intersect, you can select the sphere and move it in real time. The auto Boolean slice will cut out the overlapping shape and leave behind the original cube and a separate section of the overlapping objects. If you instead choose the brush Boolean slice, you can select the sphere and move it in real time. When you're working with certain types of geometry, you need to be careful about the order of modifiers in your stack. For example, if I add a mirror modifier to this object, notice the divot in the center of the joined area. However, if I move the mirror modifier to the top of the stack, the problem is solved. There is an easier way to solve this issue. You can now pin modifiers. If I use the down arrow to access the options for the subdivision surface modifier, I can now choose Pin to Last. Now when I add my mirror modifier, it is automatically placed at the top of the modifier stack. If you need to make some quick cables for your project, there's an easy way to do so in Blender. In the Preferences window, make sure you have the Extra Curve Objects add-on activated. Select two of the objects you want to be joined by the cable. Use Shift-A, and under the Curves menu, choose Not Quaternary. You then have multiple options for the cable in the popover. If you have a large scene with a number of objects in it, you may want to consider using collection instances to cut down on the file size of the scene. You can select the object or objects in your scene and move them into a collection by using the M key. To make a collection instance, use Shift-A to choose Collection Instance and select your collection. Whatever changes you make to the original will now be made to the collection instance. If you need to quickly select alternating faces, you can use the check or deselect. This can be done in edit mode by selecting your object and using the select menu. Once you have check or deselect active, you can use the popover menu to make changes. The deselected object tells Blender how many faces to leave unselected between selected faces. The selected option tells Blender how many faces to select in a row. The offset allows you to choose which rows to apply this tool to. When you need to slide an edge, you can choose the edge and use the G key twice along with moving the mouse to slide the edge. However, you're restricted to the bounds of the mesh. To solve this problem, after using the G key twice, use the C key. Now you're able to slide the edge outside its original boundaries. If you're in need of some color for your objects, you can always use a color palette. There are many places online to download color palettes. The one I'm using is from lowspec.com. Make sure you're in Material Preview mode by using the Z key. Once you have the color palette downloaded, open the UV editor in Blender. Then open your color palette. Open the shader editor and make a new material. Drag in the color palette and connect it to the base color of the principal BSDF. In edit mode, select your object or portions of the object and use the U key to open the UV mapping menu. Use Project from View and then select the UV islands and move them to the proper color.